Trustee Martin, you're outside.
I'm everywhere right now.
Are you walking somewhere, John? I mean, are you?
I am.
To
yes, I am. I'm going to probably just put it on my picture so I don't make you dizzy. Here, I'll take it off video so you don't have to. So meeting come to order. I still have to get to the agenda. But I think what's is our first thing. Is there a public comment on this one?
No public comment on tonight's facilities committee meeting.
Okay, great. So, and I'm probably going to try to stay on mute. So I'll just tell you, I guess, we had a water main break here in our house.
Oh, oh no.
So it's a very exciting place.
Yikes.
So there's all kinds of noises and pipes and all kinds of things going on here. So so I'll probably be on mute a lot so you don't have to hear what's going on. And I know there's been a flurry of emails coming in lately today, and I've kind of been away from emails, so I apologize. So somebody cue it up for me because I don't have my agenda up yet. What's topic 1? Technology master plan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so hit it.
All right.
I think that's, oh, go ahead, Mike.
Candace Jones is going to present our technology master plan, give the committee an update where we are in the process. Okay. Candace, go ahead.
All right. Hi, guys. Thank you so much for this time today. I first wanted to start with, this is probably the first, this is the first master plan that actually all of the leadership team here has actually started the process. So when our EMP was started, even when our FMP was started, I know Dr. Andrew Jonas was just starting sort of midway, Dr. Bush, myself. So it's super exciting that we get a chance to do this from sort of fresh, a fresh starting point. And so what we wanted to do today was simply really to express and give you guys the process by which we're going to build the plan and receive input. I have some partners here. Hold on one second. All right. So what we're going to do today, we're going to do some brief introductions with our partners at Gensler, who are partnering with the college on our technology master plan. We're going to do a little bit of an overview about our planning process, talk about our project kickoff and the timeline, share with you how we intend to get stakeholder input with surveys, focus groups, and town halls. We wanted to give you a little sneak peek at some of our external data that we're using to inform the plan. I thought that might be nice since we haven't put pen to paper. It's really an opportunity to help you all understand what data is going to inform the process. And then we'll end with some participation opportunities for our board members, and then of course, questions for you all. I'd first like to, I'm sorry, I'm looking down because I got to see if Diane joined. Diane, did you join? I know Deb is on.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, Diane, why don't we do quick introductions from our Gensler partners, maybe starting with Diane White and then over to Deborah Shepley.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so delighted to be here with all of you. I'm Diane White. My company is Integrated Academic Solutions, and I have worked with the Gensler team on a number of projects around the state of California for community colleges. I specialize in strategic planning, educational master planning, but it's also is reflected by the work with Gensler, branched into technology master planning and human resource staffing plans. So I'm super excited to be working with all of you. And I just have to also commend Candace and her PCC team They are delightful to work with and very creative, energetic, and most importantly, very student focused and equity minded. So thank you all for this opportunity.
And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Deborah Shepley, and I'm a principal with Gensler. And I'm leading and guiding our team that we've put together. I'm meeting the 2 core members of the team. And we bring a wealth of experience doing master planning for many higher education institutions, but particularly for California community colleges. I've personally led master planning projects at over 40 college campuses throughout the state, a variety of plans from strategic, educational, facilities, master planning. There's so many different kinds of master planning, but most importantly, we bring an approach that's it's all about integrated planning and making sure that all of your plans align. So we bring that approach to you as we help in partnering with you to develop your technology master plan.
I have a question really fast. I mean, coming from the School of Architecture of USC, Gensler is known to be in that side, right? Engineering and building. And how is Gensler now doing this kind of work?
So Gensler is a design firm. So we do
Right.
all aspects of design and planning. My background, I'm an architect. And I've been focusing on design, master planning, and on sort of the front end programming more than anything. So we do all aspects of planning and design. And sometimes it takes us to something more specific like technology master plans, which is why we bring on, that's why we're partnered with Diane White on this particular project. And we work similarly at other colleges where we did facilities master planning and technology master planning and academic planning. So we cover all aspects of design, anything related to design or pre-design or strategic planning in relation to design.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Diane. Let's jump in. This is just a refresher in terms of what the Technology Master Plan covers. It's really our framework for the implementation of all of our technology training, hardware services, and processes that support the district. And really, most importantly, since we have a new educational master plan, it also supports the strategic goals for the institution as well as the accreditation standards. For reference for everyone, our current plan ends at the end of this calendar year. So we are working this process so we can start to inform the next 5-year planning cycle for the Technology Master Plan. And so we're right on target to make those deadlines. All right, so what did we do? In June of 2020, the Board of Trustees actually approved our partnership with Gensler to bring them in to help us with the Technology Master Plan. So we wanted to make sure that we took some initial steps in readying the team, the PCC core team, as well as the team from Gensler. So our goal initially was to establish our production process, how we were going to go about collecting information and collecting input, making sure that we had clear timelines associated with those, benchmarks by which we could say we were successfully meeting those 10 lines and goals, the roles and responsibilities between Gensler, the team at PCC, and our various stakeholders, as well as the outcomes that we were looking for. We started that in June. A part of that process, though, means for us to dig a little deep and to see what is the current outcomes of the Technology Master Plan at PCC. So we're in the last few months of that, and we're starting to already build this assessment of how we did and what sorts of gaps there are, and if there are any ideas or options that need to be carried forward, or maybe they're still in progress, or maybe they actually, they meant something 4 or 5 years ago, but now since technology has really shifted and changed, that we maybe need to delete those goals. So we're doing that now. And then we've done an incredible amount of work on just external data scans as well as some internal environmental scans, very similar to what we would do in our educational, or what we did in our educational master plan. So that's what we've done to date. All right, the timeline that we are working on or have been working on is the summertime we took for this prep. The real fall schedule is about this campus engagement process that we've been putting together. We kicked off some surveys for our students, faculty, and staff to collect input. We are hosting focus groups and town hall sessions for all of those populations in early November, as well as we've championed or challenged our district technology committee to participate in this milestone as these sort of guiding, with all shared governance committees, there are faculty representatives, staff, classified student reps. And so we wanted to make sure that we always have an opportunity for that body to also get some feedback, as well as the facilities committee, which is why we're here today. The importance around the facilities master plan and the ties in that the technology plan will inform is very important, that those things are closely aligned. In December, we're going to do some findings, some initial drafts with our executive team. Of course, we're going to do a study session with our board of trustees. We're going to start then on the shared governance groups and soliciting input when we get the draft ready. So we don't have a draft today. Today is about the process, but you all will definitely get an opportunity to see and provide input before we ever come formally to a board meeting. In January through March, that's kind of when we're planning this process to continue, and hoping that we would be able to get to the Board of Trustees a first initial read and then a final draft approval in the March-April timeline of 2021. This is just a visual really quickly of where we are. We are in the assessing stage, and very quickly we're starting to move to the framing stage, and we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. We are exploring our data. We're going to be making some recommendations towards the end of the year and have you all have a study session and provide input on that. Then we'll go back into the cubbyhole and do some adjustments, and then come back to the board again in February, March, April timeline. So what's our feedback process? We're really focused on trying to use both quantitative data and qualitative data. So with our surveys that we've created on the technology master plan, it was very, very important that we ground that research in those questions in questions that are used for institutions across the country. And so the largest technology body for higher education and public sector is called EDUCAUSE. And so they do surveys every year for students, faculty, and staff. And what we did is we took their pool of questions, modified slightly, and then released those surveys to our students, faculty, and staff. The reason why we did that, it's very important for us to benchmark PCC against not only our sister community colleges, because they do a lot of research in the community college system in general across the country, not just California, but it's also important to see where, if there are any opportunities or areas where we can focus other resources that are aligned with other institutions, it's important that we be able to do that. It's also important to see how special we are too. And so it gives us an opportunity to do both things when we're able to compare the data that we have at Pasadena City College with our EDUCAUSE partners. We are also hosting small focus groups. So the focus group's intention is, as we receive these survey data, we're going to start digging into that a little bit more and start meeting with our constituents to ask them more questions about what did they mean about this particular item, or if they can share a little bit more information. And then, of course, we're hosting large town hall sessions. The town hall sessions are interesting and are going to be a little bit different. So with the town halls, we expect to show and demonstrate some emerging technology trends that are happening across the country. And the reason why it's important that we do that, we don't want we want to dream big. That's our goal. Our goal is to dream big And our goal is to make sure that we haven't missed anything at PCC. And so in order to show our students and our faculty in particular some of the emerging trends on the instructional side, it may help them sort of formulate new ideas about how they deliver instruction or how students receive instruction. And so that's the point of the town halls, as well as then collecting more additional feedback. And then, like we always do, we're going to make sure College Council, Academic Senate, Classified, Management Association, and our Board of Trustees have an opportunity also to look at the plan and to provide some feedback. This is just a quick little highlight of when those things are, and don't feel like you have to type down any dates. We're going to send you all special invitations to participate and listen in on the student, faculty, and staff town halls. And so you don't have to worry about the dates on this slide. This is mainly to show you that we surveyed our faculty, students, and staff. Those are the populations. And we actually received really great response. We're really happy with our response rates for our faculty, staff, and students. And it's difficult right now. It's difficult for students to give input on surveys when they're, trying to keep up with all of their classes and keeping their connections with their other colleagues and other faculty members. And so we're really, really happy with the numbers that we received, because it's a real sounding point in terms of the work that we're doing that'll inform the next plan. All right. This is the time that I know you guys love. You love external data scans. You love data. So we just have some brief things. And the point of this is just to help you all see the type of information that we are using to inform the next plan. And I am going to turn this part over to my partner, Diane.
Okay. All right. Well, I love data too. So this is all very, very perfect. So we'll look at some external data here. And if you could change slides. So one of the things that you're encountering when you look at master planning is data. And like many of you, I've seen plans that are just completely chock full of data. In fact, some of my colleagues in the planning world call those big data dumps. And you always end up asking the question, how did the data actually inform the plan? So I want to have data that is not just there for the looks, but has a real specific purpose to it. So in terms of approach, we're not taking in every single type of data, but we wanted to do some targeted data. We look at a high level snapshot so that we can get a nice broad overview of trends. We did look at 10 primary service area cities. And I want to point out that in addition to that, because you serve students from outside those cities, I used the heat map on the college's website and identified a number of other cities just to validate, to see if there was anything substantially different in additional cities outside those service area cities, but I didn't find anything statistically significant there. We're looking at equity-focused measurements. It is about student equity and student outcomes and success. So it's very, very important for us to build a technology master plan that is grounded and centered on equity and providing equitable access and opportunities for student achievement. We want to look at the data that would have the most relevant implications for technology planning. And we're not duplicating the educational master plan or anything that's been developed in your fact book. So this is not a replication of the EMP. We use the data from the EMP and especially from the fact book that your Office of Institutional Effectiveness has developed, which is really fabulous and comprehensive, and selected the data pieces from those documents that are most relevant to the technology master planning implications. In terms of our purpose, we want to identify those major conditions and trends. And this is one of the big challenges, of course, with technology master planning, because technology changes month by month. I used to say year by year, but now it's probably more rapid than that. And in a lot of the technology journals that Candace reads and I read, and many others of you probably do as well, you can see how quickly things are changing. But we want to get a broad overview of conditions so that those will inform and help us frame the technology master plan goals and objectives. So that is our general approach and the purpose behind what we're doing. So for data sets, a lot of this is probably information that's been presented to stakeholders and to the Board of Trustees in prior sessions. But we do look at the composition of ethnicities, so those demographics, median household income, poverty levels, unemployment, the disabled population, and household technology, computer and broadband internet, which for many colleges around the country, this is one of the big barriers for students in terms of their access and ultimately their outcomes. Excuse me. So we'll be looking at that as well.
Is there a reason why age is not part of your data set?
We can include it in the data set, but we wanted to focus, we didn't focus on gender or age because we were looking at higher level trends, but we can most certainly do that.
I also had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back to the approach, I
Mhm.
think that was in the previous section. You talked about equity focused measurement. Could you give me an idea of how would you frame that?
Well, I think that you look at several different factors. You can look at it from a socioeconomic frame, and that is both ethnicity and economics, which are the two of the primary determining factors often in student outcomes. Yes, age and gender and other factors are relevant as well. But if you look at something like that and you overlay it against especially the last data set that I talked about, the household internet broadband subscriptions and service, and you think about what students have tried to overcome in this particular pandemic, and that's where you can start to see what I would call equity gaps. And it's really gaps in access that will drive inequitable outcomes.
Thanks.
You're welcome. So this is a broad overview of your primary service area cities. I doubt there's anything here that's not familiar to you. We took this from the US Census American Community Survey. And then we looked at the percentage of students coming from those particular cities. And we rounded these to the nearest whole. So you can see these are placed in descending order. We looked at the breakdown of ethnic diversity by city. And you can see the service city area averages there. So you can get, again, we're looking at high level snapshot data here. Candace, if you can flip again. Just a visual way of looking at this same information. And now we look at the backdrop of income and income inequality as one factor in access in particular. You have a lower proportion of students that are coming from higher income households, and you have a greater proportion of students that are coming from lower income households. This is a pattern that you see across the state, and it certainly is reflected here in your district. The vast majority of the students in this 10 city snapshot, 98% of them are coming from cities with a poverty rate that was at the 2018 California average rate above that rate. So these are students that are facing, if I looked at your SESI and SENSE information, I would probably see some correlations here. They're possibly facing food insecurities, housing insecurities. All of those things, unemployment, those are all impacting their access to higher education and to the courses and the programs that you offer, especially now because of the pandemic and the almost ubiquitous use of remote learning.
This is really great data. I mean, it's really interesting that La Cañada, which has the highest income in the previous slide, would have a 9% poverty rate. So. Yeah. That's really interesting.
Yeah, I find the same thing when I was looking at this. It's just, there are many pieces of data that I thought illustrated some really interesting patterns. And I think challenges us to really think beyond our assumptions about
Right.
what students are up against. Yeah.
And Candace will send us this copy, right, after the presentation?
Yes,
Okay.
I absolutely can share.
Thank you.
I wanted to provide a visual so you could see the median income and the poverty rates up against each other. And again, this is 2018, and we'll show you some data as well related to more current statistics, which I think are I'll call them disturbing. Probably not anything you haven't seen, but when you take the poverty rates and then you lay over the impact of the pandemic in terms of unemployment, this is where we start to see some exacerbated conditions that I know are impacting your students as well as students around California and across the country. And in the red, I just highlighted some of these for us to consider. There's some of the pieces of information that stood out to me. If you look at Pasadena, the 2018 poverty rate was at 16%, and the unemployment rate in 2019 was 5%. So what you see there reflected, I think, is the existence of what I would call the working poor, the people who are working maybe multiple jobs, but earning incomes that, especially given housing costs and costs of living in general, are possibly pushing them into poverty. Then you look at what happened by July 2020, and in Pasadena, the unemployment rate is 15%. The reason why I think that this, for example, is a serious equity issue to be addressed is those students are probably going to be coming from households that have to make some really difficult choices. A, about coming to school at all. B, how are they going to access broadband and internet and computers and all the technology that they need in order to be successful when this is what they're facing in their households. When I look at Temple City, had a much higher poverty rate in 2018, 12%. And as of July 2020, it was up to 20%. El Monte, it was 21% in 2018. Again, low unemployment rates, but then their unemployment rates went sky high, up to 20% again. So again, I keep linking this back to student equity and making sure, if you think about it from what I call that completion by design framework, access is really critical. The access to technology is going to help drive those outcomes for those students. So we're thinking about this as we continue to do our goal development and planning. Here's just another illustration, another way to look at it. You can see these correlations in a bar graph that were represented in the table format. We also wanted to look at the disabled population, and I wanted to point out that there are many statistics underneath this statistic that we're diving into as well, because disability status is a very important consideration for student equity. And in technology, having technology that are embedded in perhaps a universal design concept is very important to serving those populations. So we wanted to know what the disabled population was in your service area communities, and then how many student headcounts come from those particular cities. So we also have information internally about those students who have identified as disabled, but this is just the external count. And here you see it again in a graphic. Before we talked about household computer and internet, I wanted to let you know too that we had a really fantastic conversation last week with constituencies from student services regarding the disabled student population, so we could drill down a little bit more as to the types of disabilities that students have, so that we can address those issues and their needs in the technology master plan. We also met with representative from EOPS, veterans. Candace, did I miss anyone?
We did non-credit.
Non-credit? Yes.
Yeah, veterans, EOPS, DSPS, and non-credit.
Thank you. So we're drilling down a little bit more so we can get a more accurate picture of how these data points are are reflective of your student population and are impacting their experiences. In terms of household computer and internet, this is something that I have seen in a number of data points and technology master plans that I've looked at. And it was true before 2020 and the pandemic, but now it's even more significant and important for us to consider how many households in your area do not have computers. They may have phones, and smartphones can do a lot, but they're also limiting in terms of students' abilities to engage in educational programs and to access student services. Broadband and internet also, so you might have computer, but maybe don't have broadband or an internet subscription. And without that, again, that's going to be a barrier to many students. These are notably Pasadena, Rosemead, and El Monte are the cities with the highest 2018 poverty rates. And we'll have to see what this looks like as we move forward through 2020 and get some more census data that should be coming out, I think, by the early part of the year.
One interesting thing to note about this, EDUCAUSE also just recently came out with their 2020 student surveys. And one of the things that's very consistent that we're finding is it's not always the lack of computer or device, it is the lack of internet and broadnet, that by and large is what students are saying that they need to support their educational success and outcomes. So we'll be using that data as well to look at our census data as well as our internal information that we get from our students here at PCC.
Well, even the cities that have high internet and broadband access, like La Cañada and San Marino, I'm hearing from the parents there that it's unstable. And so it's not steady. And so there's been a lot of frustration with the access to broadband.
Yeah.
That's actually a really great point, because also EDUCAUSE just in that data is the fact that people are connecting multiple devices, that they're connecting their phones, that they're connecting their tablets, their computers, that they're at home with others who are doing the very same thing. And so they said, the survey points out that a student comes to any college campus across the country with a minimum of 2 devices that they're connecting to Wi-Fi.
And that is one of the questions that we also asked in the survey. How many
We
devices
did.
are you using?
Are you connecting yet?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Connectivity is a huge issue for students across the country, and no doubt for students in your service area too. So I wanted to mention too, when I'm looking at the income inequality information, looking at unemployment, and I'm thinking about the students from those households making really difficult choices and having to decide: are you going to get the broadband? Are you going to get that internet subscription? Are you going to pay rent? Are you going to have food? Are you going to be able to pay for childcare? Are you going to pay for your health care? I mean, if you're lucky enough to even have it. I mean, so I think, again, it's really important for us to, as a planning team, to keep reconsidering all of the nuances of this data and what it means for your students and the situation that they're up against, and how we can build a technology master plan that helps them, get past the barriers and succeed in their programs and have equitable outcomes. This was really telling to me. We drilled down, of course, a little bit, looking at Pasadena, Rosemead, and El Monte. And we added up the number of students by head count that you had. This was 2018 information. It's 6,107. That's 56.7% of students from these cities that have the 3 highest poverty rates pre-pandemic. And notice that they are without computer and without broadband. So there is a direct correlation between those socioeconomic factors and many students' access to the technology that they're depending upon, especially right now and for the months going forward, to be able to succeed academically and to access the services that you offer. So, other data, and I would love to hear what all of you have to say and get some more input from you, and I'll stop talking.
So we used the U.S. Census data. We're using EDD data in order to inform some of this, the planning process. Of course, we're leveraging all of our institutional effectiveness data. We just wanted to make sure, from your perspective, are there any other data points or sources? So I know that we need to add age as a sort of a vector for us to consider. Are there any nuances that we need to look at as it relates to age? But is there anything else that you think, just based on what you've initially saw, that we should start digging into, so that when we come with you all with drafts, that we've considered that and incorporated that into initial drafts of the plan?
Well, Diane had mentioned gender as well. That was not included, given that there are more women going to college or graduating from college than men. You're the expert, so I'm wondering how you would, dive into if those data sets would be important in looking at women coming into community colleges.
Generally speaking, in terms of access points, it's not usually what we'll see with data trends as it relates to technology. Age would be an aspect that we definitely need to look at, because there's thought processes around training and comfort with technology that I think would have a direct correlation or an impact. We normally see less on the gender side, but we could absolutely, I think it's important that we just include it just to make sure that we haven't missed any aspect of something that may pop up as an opportunity for us to take a look at. But typically speaking, gender is not one of the driving access-related issues to technology.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine. And I'm totally fine. Just because I'm a trustee doesn't mean you have to take everything I say, as part of your data set. I'm just, I appreciate your explanation.
Yeah. One other point, and thank you for bringing that up. One other point that I wanted to make is that we're trying not to replicate what's in your fact book or your EMP, but to pull out those things that we know research has shown to be strongly determining factors. And so relevant to the demographic information, I think it's important for all of you to know that in the surveys, we are running demographics too. So we will know how many of your current students are male, female, we've broken them down into various age groups and all kinds of other demographic identifiers. So when we look with the internal data, we will have a really strong idea of a multiplicity of factors that are impacting students and their opportunities.
So I have
Brown.
So I am really pleased to see what you have here packaged. If there's anything that I would like to see, would be maybe as you do your surveys, which I'm sure you'll have more surveys and input, the participation on the faculty side kind of bothered me a little bit, because at the end of the day, that's a very important group of people to be able to drive. So if we could maybe, I'm not sure how you would do this, Candace, but I think faculty input may be a good beneficial, because at the end of the day, you know what's going to happen, right? I was pleased to see the number of students. I thought you guys did a very good job with the number of students that participated. So that made me feel good. And now that you're saying that you will focus the different demographics, I think that would be excellent, because in my area, we need to ensure that those students get involved. So you guys got a good rollout, and I'm impressed. Thanks.
We do have a student. We do have a student trustee on here. David, are you on?
I am. Thank you.
What are your thoughts?
Thank you for. So I wanted to actually ask if there was just because I was paying attention to the data, and I was listening to La Cañada, and when you think of La Cañada, you don't really think anyone struggles out there, but obviously they do, and you don't think about that. But I was wondering if there was room to also maybe include data about students that are out of district as well, and so that that data could also inform the plans that we're having. Just because, I'm an out of district student as well, and I come from a city that the poverty level out here is about 40%. And so, and I imagine it's also the same for other out of district students. So I would hope that the data also informs our plans.
Yeah.
That's a great point, David. We actually worked with Crystal's area to sort of figure out which were the 5 or 6 zip codes where our largest number of out of district students were coming from, and then look at that data from the census perspective, as well as we'll do that a review when we get the internal student survey data. But it's a great point. And we have a large number of students who are out of district, and we need to make sure that we include that as a point for consideration.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. We definitely, we have 5 of the largest cities. But when I looked at the heat map that was on the district's website, that's what we used. And you can drill to the zip code level, but what I have found in some of my other projects that I've worked on and other analyses that I've done is if you drill by zip code, you get more data, but you don't necessarily get different data. So we look at it from the city level, which is more accessible, and you cast a wider net than you do with zip code. But thank you, Trustee Ramirez, for bringing that up, because we did look at 5 of the largest groups, and there were some outliers, but I think it was also a really good process because it validated a lot of the information that we see. And I want to also piggyback a little bit on what you mentioned as well. Some of the data right now is just really the data that you really want, you can't necessarily really get because the state doesn't compile data as quickly as we would like them to, or delivered in the formats that would be mostly accessible to researchers. But especially related to technology, but also related to unemployment. And when you're talking about poverty levels in the area like you're talking about, that is really hard to capture in current data. So I'm hoping that by the time we get some more census data, and Candace, I know what EDUCAUSE might have already published will have that too, but I think that's one of the most important and driving factors right now for students across this country. And I appreciate your observation of that.
All right, trustees, here's how you can join us and participate. So we have a host of town hall meetings that we're going to be sharing the first week. I think it goes into the 2nd week of November. And so we will send a special invitation for you all to just listen into those sessions and see what our students, faculty, and staff are saying. So we'll get those on your calendars. And then we're going to schedule a special study session for the board in December timeframe. It's possible it could push to January, just depending on schedules and vacations of everyone. But that's our target. We feel we're making really good progress on meeting our milestones and data points. So we expect to see you all again in December. So that would be the first opportunity for you really to see the recommendations that we're going based on the data that we've taken in from all of these different areas. That would be our first draft of the plan, to see that and then give us some immediate feedback on areas that we need to consider or adjust, based on what you see in the December draft.
That's great.
And like always, you can ask us questions. If there are any other questions, you can feel free to do so now.
What is the funding mechanism for the technology plan?
Oh, good question. So, Sandra, it actually comes out of my budget, out of the ITF budget.
Okay.
Good job, Candace.
Thank you. I think Trustee Martin is still on the phone, but just maybe muted. I just wanted to give a quick, if he had any input or any questions.
Did you say, I didn't hear what name you said, Candace.
Yes, Trustee Martin. I just wanted to see if you had any questions or anything that you'd like.
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I was with you for most of the presentation and all of the latter part of the presentation. So.
Okay.
No, I'm
wonderful.
appreciative.
We'll get out the slides as well.
Okay, that's great. I think I skipped over approval of the minutes of our March 18th meeting. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Belinda. You
I,
want to second that, Sandra?
you know what? I can't because I wasn't there.
Okay, well then I'll second it. And all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and one abstention.
Yeah, well, I just got appointed onto this committee, so in
Okay,
July, so
no problem.
okay.
We won't hold it against you.
You're
Okay,
gonna
so
have to
we get
hold
to
it against
hear,
Jim.
well, you get to hear about the Seraphian building.
Yay, let's do this.
Thank you, Trustee Martin. Wanted to give an update where we are with the Seraphian building. As the board is aware, with the latest state's sale of bonds, the sale of the state bonds, we were funded and received approval to move forward with the construction phase. I'm going to ask Richard to give an update in a second where we are in the process, but tonight on the agenda, we are also selecting the construction management company, and we have recommended Ketchel to be the construction management company for the Seraphian building. Ketchel had the most experience in community colleges. They also have a superb communication plan, both on websites as well as signage around the project. And additionally, they had extensive experience with demolition of like type buildings of either hospitals or health science buildings. And they're bringing their engineer on assigned to the job has a lot of demolition experience. So we felt they were the best fit for the college. So that's on tonight's agenda on the consent. And then we also we're currently out to bid on the project, and that has been very taxing for the college to come up with a way to bid the project and have a job walk. And I'll let Richard fill you in a little bit on it, but essentially we had to do a virtual job walk, and Richard and Alex's staff filmed an hour job walk of the building. And we had several participants, and we're currently, Richard, how many are coming back to walk it in person?
Good evening, committee members. Currently, we were at about half of our group that were qualified bidders. We've had 7 of the 13 contractors request a walkthrough of the building at this moment.
Yeah, and they'll walk through by themselves with a staff member there, but we won't be answering any of the bidding questions, but give them an opportunity to actually walk the space and be able to socially distance while we do that. Richard, if you could share kind of what the board can expect during a demolition, what the public will see from the outside, and then the timelines when they'll start seeing action.
Certainly. Again, good evening, everyone. So as Mike had pointed out, we're in the bidding phase for what we're calling the demolition portion of this project. We cut it into 2 projects. One will be the demolition, and then it will be followed by the construction of the new replacement building. So currently our bid walks will end in the early part of November. We're hoping to have on the November board or a special board meeting near the end of November, an authorization to award pending state final approval for the demolition portion. The timeline is that we would hope to have the contracts all signed and the contractor ready to start the first week of December. And that would be on the demolition, and that would start with the abatement of the interior hazardous materials. So for the first couple months, we're not going to see very many exciting things happening on the outside of the building. The perimeter fencing will go up. The abatement contractors will be mobilizing. There'll be some bins coming in and some foot traffic. The majority of the work will be happening inside the building for the first 2 months. Then we're anticipating somewhere around January to late January to early February. That's when we're going to actually see the long reach excavators come in, and they will start taking down the building from the top floor, floor by floor, and pulling it off site. Concurrently, while that demolition process is going on, we will be getting final approval from the state for our construction bid package and bidding that with an anticipation of award in April, well, February, with an anticipation of award and start of construction work right on the heels of the demolition in about April of 2021. The project is then scheduled to be substantially completed by November of 2022.
Yay.
Can Richard or I answer any questions for the board members?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go
Yes.
ahead, Belinda.
So going back to the construction, I think you said that most of the bidders, I guess you could call them, will be doing this virtually?
They did, because of the COVID-19, we couldn't bring, it would have been approximately 60 to 70 people to walk the building. We couldn't socially distance as well as answer questions. So a lot of we learned from a lot of our colleagues, we're doing a videotape. So there was a Zoom meeting where Darlene Inda, our executive director of business services, was running the meeting, and Richard was attending it, and the architect and our purchasing department, so they could answer questions, and the bidders had to sign in ahead of time electronically. And then we took roll again after the viewing the film, the video, but Richard went with Alex's staff and filmed every one of the spaces, and Richard narrated it. So they had an idea of what job they were bidding. And we also gave that link to that film to them to view later. And then several of them have asked to come out and take measurements and walk the space themselves. But they'll do that with just their company.
Okay, Mike, we're in 5 minutes to close here,
Okay.
or else we'll be late for the next one.
I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Martin.
Okay. I had a question on the general job description for the construction management company. I don't know, can you answer that in 30 seconds?
I'll try.
Okay.
They are going to be the construction management of the project and will be overseeing the project, working with the contractors and interfacing with district staff and the architect. They will do very similar job to what Element's been doing on our smaller projects, and similar to what Jack Schulman used to do. So they will be the construction management on the Serafian building.
Okay, and then the virtual job walk you described, was that both for demo and construction that you were
Only-
talking about, or was that just for the demo?
Just the demo. That's all we're bidding right
That
now.
was just yeah, it was just for the demo. Okay, great. Any other questions then? Okay, looks like we're supposed to queue up 4:30 before our next board meeting. Do you really need us again before our next board meeting,
No,
Erica?
No, and actually, I think for our right before our next board meeting, we actually I believe we're going to have a study session training by our liaison to the ACCJC for accreditation. So we will not be meeting before the next board meeting.
Okay, well, you'll let us know when you need us then, and this is our usual time.
Yes.
Okay, is there any other future agenda items? Okay, and then I think we will then adjourn and probably see you all on the other side.
Yep. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.